My fellow Americans, and for that matter, my fellow human beings around the planet, out of the 8 billion plus people, billions live in scarcity. In our country, my country, the United States of America, we have the promises of freedom. And we have a lot of freedoms. But there are many things that we do not. Things that our nation needs to become an even more perfect union. And I spoke about voting on a previous video or that I had put up here on Facebook and other places. But we must fight back around the globe for what is right. And we must fight for abundance. And we must fight for equal rights and basic human rights and needs. But voting doesn't always work. Yes, I want you to vote, but it does not always work. So when I was doing my TV series, Humanity Matters Live, for more than 19 years, I came up with a phrase, and I said it in a comical way. Now, back in the 90s or so, Chris Rock, a comedian in the United States, used to have a tagline. He would say, "Now that ain't right." And he would say it, and I'm not an impressionist, but he kind of would say it like, "Now that ain't right." So I piggybacked off of that, and I came up with a term for when people are doing wrong to us in any way. And here's the term, and I will do it the way I had originally did it on live TV multiple times. I would say simply like this: if you ain't doing right, get ready to say goodnight. Yeah, a little bit almost like a minister style, but I would say, if you ain't doing right, get ready to say goodnight. I'd immediately would make a disclaimer, and I would say, I mean legally, spiritually, ethically, financially, and morally. Okay. So I meant that. I mean it today. You might say, well, Al, okay, that's great. I'm sorry, I had to sit up. But Al, have you put it into practice? Oh, yes, ma'am, and yes, sir, I have. I had a telecommunications company that I was getting the bundle for TV, internet, and phone. And when I first started getting it, it was like about $80 a month. Well, at one point, it became over $250 a month. And I took a calculator and I looked at how much I would actually be paying out if I kept the service. And it came out to roughly $3,000. It was more than $250. It came out to $3,000 a year for just TV, very low, like the basic of basic packs. I mean, there wasn't really any premium at all. For TV, very basic, internet, medium, and telephone, medium, was almost $3,000. So I'm a fair man. Called the company up. I said, look, we need to make a deal that's way better than this. And they kept saying, well, we really can't do anything lower than that. I said, are you absolutely sure? They said, yes, sir, we are. I said, are you positive? They said, yes, sir, we are. So this company that thought they were going to get $3,000, they just weren't doing right. You know what they get today from me or my girlfriend? $0.00, because they were not doing right. And if you ain't doing right, get ready to say goodnight. Now that was a financial way. And there's been other ways. that I have not dealt with people that did wrong. You see, my friends, we need to fight back. Now, what happens if you live in a country that has zero freedom? Can you fight back without getting taken out? Got to be real careful. But in America, at least in theory, we have free speech. We won't get into that, but like I said, theory. But if voting doesn't always work, how then can we fight back? How can we get our government on a federal, state, and local level to listen to us? How can we get corporations to treat us right? And how can we get what we deserve? It's very simple, my friends, multiple ways. But one of the greatest tools that we as Americans have is where we spend our money. If they're not doing right, you do not shop there. Have I employed that? Oh, yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, sir. We take their money away from them. Now imagine if it went viral and you had an incident and it went viral and millions of Americans learned about this, and suddenly that store or chain was losing millions of dollars. Do you think maybe they'd start to enact different policies? You better believe it. To give you a little history for New York Second or Pittsburgh Minute, you know the pandemic that just was around a few years ago? Remember most Americans got a stimulus check and employers got stimulus money. May have been called slightly different, but you remember those stimulus checks? Do you know the principal reason why our government, both parties by the way, gave those stimulus checks? It was to keep businesses and principally corporations in business. It was to keep our economy going. Yeah. So what does that tell us, my friends? It tells us that if we say no to abuse and we don't shop at a place and we boycott it and we go to another place that treats us better, then that store or that chain is forced to change policies and start doing what the song Aretha Franklin sung in the 60s, I believe, maybe earlier, maybe a little later. There's a song by Aretha Franklin, and it spells out the word respect. They will respect us. And by the way, you may only get minimum wage. You may think that you are a poor person. But sir and ma'am, you have as much power to affect change than any multi-billionaire. You may not have as much money, obviously, but you actually in many ways have more power than they do. More. You see, it's the combined monies of the majority of Americans that keep these organizations, the pharmaceuticals, the oil companies, anything you can imagine, the big box stores, the membership clubs like, well, I'm not going to mention names, but you know, one starts with a S, one starts with a C, one starts with a B, or even online, one starts with an A. Every aspect of this nation, the United States, depends on you spending money. So if you want to earn more money, if you want better leadership, if you're tired of both parties giving you the runaround, you may not get your victory through voting. You may not get your victory from protesting. You may not. But stop going to the stores and going to one that treats you with respect. And all of a sudden, our government and the stores and every industry is going to be on high alert nervousness because they need us. They need the people that work in the fast food. They need the people in the big box stores. They need the people from the lowest paid to the highest paid, because without us, there's no America. Without you, there's no China. Without you, there's no nation and no economy. So no matter what place you live on this great earth, know that you have a tool to fight back legally, ethically, morally, spiritually, and financially. If I can take away $3,000 from a company, do you think that hurt them a wee bit, a little bit? Yeah. Imagine it on a scale of 1,000 or 20,000 or 1,000,000 or 10 million. Then that company, they're going to change their policy or they're going to go out of business. And for the record, there have been companies who refuse to do the right thing who are now gone. Massive companies that are gone. It is true, my friends. And you have the power. So if you go to anywhere, a restaurant, a store, where you buy your gasoline, if you have a vehicle, I don't care where you go, what you do, you have the power. Let's fight back legally, let's fight back morally, spiritually, and financially, and let's get our abundance. Because, you know why? You deserve it. I deserve it. And we cannot allow ourselves to be disrespected and abused ever again. My name is Al Torcaso. Feedback at 412-559-2731. The very next time they do wrong, just stop paying them any money and see how quickly they rethink their strategies. Oh, yeah. Oh, and for the record, that company that doesn't get any money from me anymore, they keep trying to get me back. They have a better chance of winning the Powerball jackpot 1,000 times in a row. It's not going to happen. Because once you do wrong, I'm gone. Oh, and by the way, I tell you these things because you matter. 412-559-2731. God bless America and every nation on earth.